Steve Sarkisian, the $10 million man. Two new coaches, Kenny Baker, defensive line coach, Johnny Nansen. I'd like to check in with you, see what you're hearing about those new coaches and how they're taken to the recruiting trail.
Yeah, and so with February being dead, obviously these coaches can't be out on the road. They can't go back out on the road until mid-April. But obviously, in a few days, the dead period is going to lift, and they can host visitors. So we'll see more of a in-person impact then. But in the limited window we had in January, Johnny Nansen got hired in time for that junior day on January 20th, and when we caught up with all the kids after that, just leaving campus, I mean, he was probably the coach we heard about most, behind Sark in terms of, the guys they had positive interactions with. I mean, all the kids had good times and, met with their respective coaches. But, we talked to Anthony Williams, the Texas commit, the linebacker commit, and, he was raving about him. And, probably their top linebacker target overall in Riley Pettijohn, that was a guy that, we needed to check in with after Jeff Choate left, because that probably could have hurt Texas. But it sounds like Nansen's only helped Texas even more with Riley Pettijohn, who's that borderline 5-star linebacker from McKinney. So everyone's just talked about his football knowledge, his personability, or how personable he is. Just seems like a really great addition, and is going to be a big plus on the recruiting trail. And then Kenny Baker, he came in a little bit later. He wasn't there for that junior day, but the reception's been pretty positive. He had a chance to go out on the road a little bit right before that dead period kicked back in. He saw a handful of guys in state. He's reached out to some other defensive linemen. We've seen him offer a few guys. They offered an Auburn commit this week, Malik Autry, out in Alabama. So he's starting to kind of make his presence felt, and I'll be curious to see how he's received once guys get back on campus for visits throughout the spring, and see him kind of come into his own on the recruiting trail as well.
He's known as the Poly Whisperer, Johnny Nansen.
Yeah.
That is. Any early indicators? Any targets in the Polynesian community?
Yeah. And I will say the one kid that I'll be interested to see, I need to make sure I'm pronouncing his name right. He's actually in the 2026 class. He's out at Bastrop High School. Hold on one sec. I want to make sure I say his name right.
Bastrop.
Bastrop's got some guys.
I heard. I've been hearing, because I saw Sark there. He took a picture with the coach earlier this year, and I was like, Bastrop?
Yeah.
And Alfred Collins is from the Bastrop area, but man.
I know that's still weird to me that Cedar Creek High School is like Bastrop ISD, but it's like right by the airport. It's kind of weird, or just past the airport.
It's like in the middle of Del Valley and Bastrop.
Yeah. Tiki Hola. Yeah. He was actually at junior day as well. So, I'm kind of just speculating in terms of, Polynesian. But another one, Peter Lange, he's an offensive lineman from California. And, the coaches mostly, they kind of stick to their positions in terms of areas, depending on, where they're at. Dallas and Houston are kind of different. There's just big areas and high, hotbeds of talent that, they kind of go out of their position group a little bit, to cover the whole area. But I think he'll be a big asset, especially, maybe if he's not like, the primary on a certain kid, but, just having him on campus and around these visits and official visit weekends coming up once they get going in the spring and summer. Excuse me.
You fellas at Horns 24/7 throughout the Stampede this week. Hell of a job per usual. The way too early signees for 2025. And DeCorian Moore is what stands out for me with that column, fellas. Hank, talk about him. LSU commit. He did big things, or still doing big things down at Duncanville. What's it looking like with him right now?
Yeah, so this is going to be an interesting one to follow, and I don't think I think it'll be similar in kind of in the same way we saw Colin Simmons's recruitment go down, in terms of timing. I think he wants to have things wrapped up by the end of the summer, and obviously, he's committed to LSU, so you would say, his recruitment's already wrapped up. He's committed to LSU, but obviously he's still listening to all these schools. Texas is heavily in the mix for him. he has family around the Austin area. Oregon's another school we've heard has kind of been making some noise there, and he's going to take some other visits as well. But I would expect to see him, officially visit, all these schools, probably in the summer. I think June's kind of the target period for most of these guys, and then take July to assess everything, see how he feels about where he stands with LSU and all that, and then probably make a final decision. And I say that, and then you can take visits in the fall, but I think he truly wants to have things wrapped up by the end of the summer. So I think Texas is still right there. We included him in the mock class. That he's their top receiver target. He's a guy they want in this class. He's a guy that I was talking to one source. There's a lot of talented wide receivers in this class, but there's only so much space this time around in this cycle, and they're not really gonna, they're not gonna wait for a lot of guys. DeCorey Moore is a guy they would wait for. They're gonna recruit him as long as they have to try to get him. So, but then you look at some other receiver targets. If you want in, I think we might see some guys commit earlier than maybe they typically would this cycle. Just in terms of there's so many guys out there. It's like who wants in first, so. DeCorey Moore, I'm still projecting Texas. I haven't put in a crystal ball pick. I haven't taken that leap just yet, but I think as this plays out, I think Texas is positioned well for him.
So sometimes you can get a gut feel for how Texas is doing in the 2025 class. What's your gut feel right now?
It's very positive. And again, it's hard to, kind of make that assessment right now coming out of February, just because it is the dead period. There's just not, we see offers go out, coaches can still recruit kids on the phone and, FaceTime with them and whatnot, but it's just not a ton happening. But you look at their commitment list, it got going, towards the end of 2023. They got that big addition in Lance Jackson after Junior Day, and there's they have a lot of all the news this month has been visits getting lined up. It's like, as me and Jordan Scruggs were talking about it the other day, it's like I've never seen a month where just the news is just visits. Like it's just constant. He's visiting March 13th. He's visiting. His official visit set for June. So, everything's getting lined up. I'm keeping a running list on everything we're confirming on my Stickies notes. But, I think it's very positive where they're standing right now. Kids are saying good things. Again, that Junior Day was a big success. Again, they're coming off this playoff run. I wrote a story recently about, everything Texas fans should be, excited about in terms of recruiting entering this cycle. And, coming off a college football playoff run where, you're one play away from making that national championship game. You're bringing back all this talent in 2024 ahead of your first year in the SEC. There's plenty Texas fans should be excited about. And, I think that's going to, reflect on the recruiting trail as well.
Yeah. Another thing, Hank, that's obviously reflected on the recruiting trail is the fact that the Horns have 11 guys at the NFL Combine. Guys want to go to the next level after their college career is over, and the next level is the National Football League. What players in the Combine are you most excited about seeing and putting out in drills and just seeing their measurements to where it's going to improve their draft stock?
Yeah, I think it starts with Devondre Sweat. I think he's the guy, I think that could probably boost his stock probably some of the most this week, just with how he checks in. Byron Murphy obviously is a good one to track. I forgot, I was looking at the schedule. So his defensive lineman checked in today, right?
They're on the field tomorrow.
Okay. And then wide receivers and quarterbacks are over the weekend.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm excited to see them all. I think as someone that's followed Texas for so long, we haven't seen this in a while in terms of, they're going to have a really strong draft year. That's kind of been the knock on Texas in, the last decade is, where's the NFL talent? They have guys here and there. But, in terms of like this big of a kind of a statement year and putting guys in the league, this should be really beneficial for Sark. And, and really kind of shows he can kind of actually like tangibly lay out his vision and like what he's trying to do at Texas now that, they're actually putting guys in the league. Because, it used to be you write a story about Texas and he's like, oh, they put out NFL players. It's like, well, they do. It's like that we haven't seen that many and now they are. And, it looks like it's just going to continue with the guys they have in the wings coming up this year in the years to come.
Yeah. What anything else on the top of your recruiting notebook? I know Zay likes to ask you, about hoops, but anything?
Yeah. I actually, one real interesting nugget that we were I was saving for maybe the insider, but maybe a little preview to the insider. I can always add more nuggets, but or my portion of it. But Landon Rink, the 4-star defensive lineman, Texas legacy. His dad was played at Texas in the '90s. Shane Rink. I don't think for a long time it was this kid's gonna end up at Texas. He's a Texas legacy. He's close to people at Texas. It sounds like Texas might be out for him. From talking to him this week, and he doesn't seem to be feeling Texas for whatever reason that is. Maybe he not feeling the love, or maybe they're recruiting other guys. We're still kind of digging in on that, but we have our crystal balls on Texas. I'm gonna have to figure out a different school to put it on right now, because I think he's leaning elsewhere, which is surprising because typically legacy recruits and like that end up following their footsteps, but sometimes it works against you. Sometimes kids want to do their own things and carve their own path, so it works against you. So maybe that's the case of this, but I think that was an interesting little nugget we uncovered in the last couple of days. What else do I have written down? I mean, just official visits are getting set left and right. We've seen Emory Winston, the tight end commit. He just set his official visit for June 21st through 23rd. Caleb Chester, one of the defensive backs from Fort Bend Marshall, he set his official visit for June 2nd. The spring game list is getting put together. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be, when this dead period lifts, there's going to be a lot more news kind of coming in and coming out with guys taking visits. And then we got Under Armour camps in Houston and Dallas coming up in March as well. So that's always kind of a big news driver with all the in-state targets there. And then one other interesting thing that came up today is Pete Thamel was tweeting that they're looking at the possibility of 3 signing periods, one at the end of June, one right after the Wednesday after the regular season finale in college football, and then the traditional February signing period. So that was an interesting take, So I'm not sure. I saw one response. It was like, just leave it as a February signing period. Like, it's just NCAA is just complicating it so much with all this. But yeah, so a June signing period would be really weird. I think, I've always thought, a summer signing period would be good. But then I look at the ease in which kids can just ask out of their letters of intent if they don't like a coaching change. And, that just seems like it's going to create that much more chaos when the coaching carousel fires up in late November. So I don't know. It's a lot. So
yeah, I was going to say,
do you alleviate stress? But I think they're just going to end up causing more stress for coaches.
Like, is there a scenario that makes sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for a while I was thinking summer, get it locked in. But then, after just this cycle in particular, we saw with DeAndre Robinson, he obviously didn't like that Bo Davis left, and he asked out of his letter of intent. Texas let him out. I think most times, schools are going to, they don't want a kid that doesn't want to be there, Texas in particular. So, I think February makes sense. Honestly, moving the early signing period to December 4th makes sense. It gives you a chance to, finish that and then turn your attention to the portal. Whereas now it's, portal opens December 5th. Sometimes certain teams, their roster's just decimated and they have to, recruit their own players and then obviously finish the 2 weeks of recruiting the high school guys they want. So I think it makes sense to, move that early signing period a little bit further. But the more I think about it, I feel like the summer signing period might just cause more stress, but maybe it'll help. I don't know.
Hey man,
they hang
all the help they can get.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last one for me, Hank, going back to your Bama days. I'm seeing a lot of these mock drafts. Dallas Turner might be the first defensive player taken off the board, which, I look at the dude from, talk about Polynesian cats, old boy from UCLA, who was just dominant this year. And I get it, SEC. Yeah, Latua, that's him. I get it. SEC Pac-12 a little different, but Dallas Turner, do you think he's deserved to be the first defensive player taken off the board?
I mean, yeah, he's a stud. I know Texas fans are, they don't probably care for him much with the hit on Quinn Ewers back in 2022, but I mean, he's a guy that I think is, he hasn't even like scratched his ceiling yet. I think he has a ton of upside. So if you're looking at it in that perspective, yeah, but I mean, just long, lengthy kid. I want to say, and I think his dad's a basketball coach, but I'm not sure if he played basketball, but he has like a really athletic, background. And just, he obviously made plays, and, he was able to make an impact in the same, lineup with Will Anderson and Braswell, who's probably going to be a late first rounder, I would think. Or is Braswell? Yeah, Braswell entered the draft, right? Chris Braswell. Yeah, he was a senior last year, I think. Anyway, he was able to come in and kind of make his name for himself in a pretty loaded edge rusher group at Alabama. So I think that says a lot too. But no, he's a pretty solid player.